Hello everyone, welcome to Monday Musings. I'm going to show you something quick and easy. This week I've had kind of a rotten week. My dryer broke. I went out to leave tonight to take something to my son at work, and my tire is flat, and it's late, and we're going to do something easy. So I made these tags. I haven't made any tags for a while. These are just very simple tags, and you can embellish them a whole lot more than what I did, but I'm just going to show you how to do this much. So we're going to start out with these tags, empty tags. I'm using the large stamp from Americana Silhouettes by Tim Holtz, this way. And this white ink that I'm using is juicy. So I'll have to have some paper towels over here. So what I did was, I didn't want to use distress ink on this because I wanted a clearer, sharper image. So I used mixed media, jasmine, and don't really need any more on here though, do I? And I put that in the center, and then I took Memento Love Letter. Oops. This needs to go up here. And then Memento Nautical Blue. Okay. Then I put my tag right here on top and just pressed it down, holding it with one hand, and lift it off. Okay, then very quickly, before this ink dries, because it isn't the distress ink, I'm putting some clear embossing powder over top. And then let's emboss. But I want to go ahead and do my other tag first. Go ahead and ink it up before I do my embossing. Try not to shake the camera. And I'll do the same thing again. Lay it right down here, rub the ink on, and lift it straight up. Get that out of the way, and quickly get my embossing powder on. This is clear embossing powder. Okay. I'm going to wipe this up a little bit. I'll put my powder back in. Close that up. Now I'm going to use my heat gun to do the embossing. Okay. Also going to use my needle nose tweezers to hold on to it while I'm doing that. Okay, now we've got that done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, I was experimenting, I didn't know which color I wanted to use, so I pulled out antique linen and old paper both. So, and I used one on each, and there's not a real big difference between the two. I think that old paper gives it just a little bit dirtier look. Now, one of the reasons that I embossed was so that the ink would now, the lettering would now act as a resist. So I can completely cover my tag and not worry about covering my wording. So the old paper has just like a greenish cast to it, so it gives it a little bit more aged look than the antique linen, and I really like the way it highlights the white ink. Okay, so now let's use antique linen on the other one. I'm holding this while I ink it because if I pound on it, then my camera falls down. So I'm going to go all over this tag with antique linen. So I think I prefer the old paper to the antique linen because I like that green cast, and it also just seems to highlight the white, to bring out the white a little bit better. Okay, and then I'm going to go over the edges of both of them with Vintage Photo. You could use black soot, you could use walnut stain, you could use really any of the browns, but tea dye would be good. But Vintage Photo seems to be my go-to for edging, so that's what I got out today. And I'm just getting the edges, not anywhere in the center. Okay. So now we've got that part done. And next what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some packaging, some clear packaging, and black archival ink, and I'm going to stamp on it. I'm going to stamp my Lady Liberty from the Americana Silhouettes package, stamp sheet. Get my block out. And I'm going to ink it up. And stamp. I'm just going to go ahead and stamp in the corner here. And also on that tag, I use the USA from the mini blueprint stamp sheet, and it's mini blueprints 2, and it has the Americana and the spring and the February 14th. So I'm using the USA stamp from the mini blueprints. So I'm going to put that also on my stamp block and ink it up. You want to be sure that you press down, don't move it around because you don't want to smear, and then lift straight up. And now very carefully I'm going to make sure this ink is dry by just applying a little bit of heat to it, waving it at the same time so that I don't melt the plastic. But archival ink does take a few minutes to dry, so I'm just going to speed that up a little bit. Okay, now the plastic will hold the heat and help it to dry, so I don't have to continue with the heat. And then I'm going to cut out my pieces. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and let those continue to dry, And then for my second tag, I used these two Blueprint minis. So I'm going to put those on my stamp block. And ink them with the archival ink. Better do this holding it so I don't knock my camera down. And I'm going to come back to my piece of packaging and stamp those. And lift straight up. Good. No smearing so far. Now I'll go ahead and hit them a shot with the heat. If I see my plastic start to buckle, I know that it's plenty warm, and to get that heat off of it. And the reason I chose clear plastic is because I wanted to make these dimensional and yet still be able to see my stamping and embossing behind it. So I think these are dried now, and I'll put these back over to the side, and then I'm just going to trim really closely around the stamp, around the stamped image. And I'm not trying to get it right up against it. I'm getting pretty close, but I'm not really being that particular. And for my Liberty, I'm just going to go straight across the bottom, and I'm going to come up around her head pretty close. And do the same on this side. And I am going to cut out around the spikes, so I'm going to do that part last. I'm not worried about getting too close to them, but just so that they are separated and not one big piece. And I'm still not, I'm avoiding touching the stamping just in case it still might be just a little bit moist. So I don't want to take any chances in smearing at this point. So it probably looks pretty awkward the way I'm cutting, but it's because I don't want to handle the stamped image yet. Okay, there we go. Get all my scraps out of the way. And this is the one with the old paper ink. So then what I want to do, now obviously this is clear, so I can't really use a pop dot on it. So what I'm using, and I've lost it, there it is, it's a product called Scrap Dots by Helmer, and it's three-dimensional, and it is kind of liquid. It's in this tube, and what I'm going to do, you can make your embellishment stand up just as high as you want it to stand up. Let's see if I can get something underneath it so that you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to put a dimensional dot, or blob, right there. there, right there. And then when I turn it over and apply it, I'm not going to push it down. I'm just going to set it on there and just make sure that it makes contact. And then my USA. And this does dry clear. That one kind of spread out. And I think I'm going to put it right there. I'm just going to make contact. Now, now you'll have to set this aside to dry. And what I did on the others the samples that I made with the to make the tag, all I did was take some white seam binding. Let me put this over out of the way. And I cut it to size, and then I used Barn Red and Faded Jeans stain. I sprayed the seam binding with water and scrunched it all up and put some of the stain on my craft sheet, and I put the red and blue stains on there, and then I dried it, and then I put the white distress stain on, because the white was getting eaten up with the darker colors. So I put that white on separately afterwards, and you can kind of see it a little bit. You could probably still use some more. In fact, let's do that. Let me take this one off. And shake your stain. And you can just paint it on there where you want it to. And it will dry, not quite as bright, but if you put a couple of coats on it a couple of times, then you'll get that white. You'll get that faded white color. Okay. So that's how I did the ribbons on the tags. And these Helmar dots here are not quite dry yet, but I hope that you'll be able to see that they do make my piece of plastic stand up from the card, and so you can see what's behind it pretty well. Got a little pushed down. Okay, and then for my other tag, I'm going to grab these two stamped images. These are pretty squared off, so they're easily cut out. These are all dry now, so I can handle them without worry of smearing. And since these are pretty square, I'm just going to take my Helmar dots and I'm just going to apply them to my tag, because that is actually a little easier to do. And then just set it right down on there. And right there. And when that dries, then they'll be standing up. So yeah, these are pretty simple. They're not embellished a whole lot, but you can do more to them if you'd like. But that's my Monday musings for this week, and I hope you all have, those of you here in the U.S. have a really fun, happy 4th of July. And those in Canada, a happy Canada Day to you too. This is still Sunday night, and so happy Canada Day to you. See you next week. Bye.